Thank God it's Monday. I'm Krista from the Gritty Glitter Badger podcast. Welcome back for your Monday morning quickie. Well, welcome back to your Monday morning quickie. And it's the only corner of is it the internet or the podcasting space where I don't just want you to whisper affirmations out into the void and hope that the universe is just going to drop miracles into your lap. This is where I like to roll up our sleeves and, really like look at the raw truth, right? And actually do something about it. And today's quote, I talk about this a lot, but I feel like it needs to be addressed again. I'm just seeing a lot of different things in the social media space of which I've actually taken a break from because it gets to be overwhelming and daunting after a period of time. But the quote is that I'm going to roll into this fabulous week with is a comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. And this is by an unknown individual. So whoever you are, thank you for this quote, because let's be real. Comfort is a very seductive, sexy, cozy thing, right? It's familiar and it feels and smells like your favorite oversized hoodie or sweatpants or t-shirt. And it sounds like Netflix is, asking if you're still watching while your goals are actually just they're in the corner of a room and wondering if are you still there, like what's happening, hello McFly, are you like fucking going to come and get us or what, like what are we doing? And comfort tells you that you have done enough, right? It's going to embrace you and it's going to say, oh honey, you're good, you've done something. But, when comfort reaches out and it pats you on your head and it holds your hand and gives you a snack and whispers, there's always tomorrow. But is there? Meanwhile, comfort is quietly, efficiently, and politely killing all of your fucking potential. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's just this slow, systematic stagnation that's wrapped up in, the little throw pillows that people punch in the middle so they get that little like indentation and a false sense of security. So today I want to deep dive into the dichotomy of safety versus growth. And I want to talk about why comfort feels so damn good because I get it. I've been there, right? And why staying there too long is the fastest way to fossilize your soul. And then why so many high achievers wake up one day bored out of their minds, wondering how the hell they even got there. So this is my friend to friend, badger to badger, and let's just roll straight up into the grit. So I want to talk about why comfort feels like safety, but it is actually a trap. See, your brain loves comfort for one very simple primal reason, and that is predictability feels like survival. And coming from an evolutionary standpoint, your nervous system is hardwired to conserve energy and avoid any unnecessary risks, right? So new things, they require cognitive effort. Effort burns precious calories. And, once upon a time, burning too many calories or, taking too many wrong risks could literally get your ass killed by a saber-toothed tiger or, people from another tribe, right? A competing tribe. So your brain got very, very, very efficient at saying, nope, you know what? we're good right here in the cave, and the cave that I'm in, this cave has like the snacks and the food that we need. And also, I know this cave, and this cave is familiar to me. So take that, and then we're going to fast forward it thousands of years, okay? The thing is, that same prehistoric wiring is still running the show when it comes to our everyday life. It's the voice that's telling you, don't rock the boat, don't ask for the raise, don't leave the soul sucking job, don't challenge the narrative that you've been spinning for a decade just because it keeps you small. Stay where it's familiar, right? Stay where nothing uncertain can touch you. But the kicker with all of this is your brain, our brains, as beautifully, gorgeously, deliciously fantastic as it is a terrible judge of modern danger. And it is not distinguishing between a physical threat to our lives or the emotional discomfort of a vulnerable, necessary conversation. It could be the email that you're avoiding or the boundary that you need to set, that no, right? Or the dream that you keep thinking about instead of executing. And your system responds to all of that like it is that predator or the competitive tribe. And they've just jumped out of the bushes and they're freaking steamrolling and they are attacking you. So, what does this do? And it pulls us back toward, that unknown, the or back to the known, like the known, that it doesn't mean good, it just means predictable. So what is the data, the neurological numbing of the status quo? And I want to talk about that. And there's research in behavioral neuroscience, specifically looking at the work of Dr. Gregory Burns at Emory University. And he has shown that the human brain actually prefers predictable negative outcomes over an unpredictable one, over an unpredictable positive outcome, right? And we would literally rather be miserable and know exactly how we're going to be miserable than step into the unknown for a chance at something better, for better opportunities. And furthermore, novelty and challenge engage the brain's dopamine system in ways that passive comfort simply cannot. We often think of dopamine as this reward chemical, which it is, but researchers like Dr. Wolfram Schultz at the University of Cambridge has demonstrated that dopamine is actually it's about prediction error and pursuit. It's a chemical of more. So, it's like the thing that I've talked about in the past when, let's use, social media, for example, when you are scrolling, right? That 5 minute scroll that you had, after a while, the 5 minute scroll is not going to be enough. It's going to have to be 10. The hit's going to have to be bigger in order to get that dopamine reward from that. And, this whole, this, the chemical of more, what it is doing is it's lighting up when we are doing the chasing, the learning, and the stretching, right? And then when we live in this padded little world of sameness, right? We aren't just relaxing, we are actually neurologically starving ourselves of those very neurotransmitters that create motivation. So it's not necessarily about being lazy. It's just could be something as simple as being understimulated. Our biology adapts to the environment that we provide it. And if that environment is a velvet coffin, you know, our drive will eventually suffocate inside of it. So comfort is where dreams, basically it's like, come on in and let's just take a nap, like a really long nap. So let's be honest for a second. I'm not talking about Instagram caption honest, like, oh, how many likes am I going to get because, of this, or like whatever. I am talking about, where everything is resolved in three three simple strategies or bullet points. I'm talking raw badger honesty. And most people do not fail because they've tried with their whole chest and fell short. Okay. They fail because they've never fully committed to the thing in the first place. They've hovered, dabbled, kept one foot in, one foot out because, they're afraid of, the friction that is bound to come along with that. Stayed interested instead of invested. Those are two totally different things. Being interested, being invested are not the same things. They are not synonymous because being invested means that you're going to be vulnerable. You're going to fail because you're trying, right? And being vulnerable and trying is, guess what? Yes, you guessed it. It is uncomfortable as hell. And I can speak on this with certainty. You know, and that's the one thing, like if we can guarantee one thing, uncertainty is it. Change is going to happen. And, comfort is a space where you talk about what you could do. It's where there's this whole thing of just romanticizing potential and making vision boards about our future self. And I'm not saying that's wrong because I do those things, right? I do those things, right? But the problem is we do these things, but then we keep doing the same exact safe shit that guarantees that we're never actually going to meet what it is that, on the vision board or what it is that we say that we want. And here's the badger tough love truth. If your life feels stagnant, there is a very good chance that you have mastered comfort more than you have mastered courage and action. And I'm not saying you're weak. It makes us human. But staying there, that's the problem. Particularly once you've been called out, then it's a choice. You are actively making a choice that comes with a massive, invisible price tag. And there is a hidden cost of stagnation. And I like to call this learned helplessness. And this is something that we have heard of before, learned helplessness, right? So comfort doesn't just stall our growth. It quietly it erodes your self-efficacy. And every time we avoid the hard thing, our brain is taking notes, okay? It's like, all right, I remember that. Okay. Yeah. All right. And every time you shrink yourself, overthink instead of act, or tell yourself some version of not yet, your brain logs that as evidence of your inability to handle life. Neuroplasticity is happening whether it is negative or positive. Your brain is rewiring to the thing that you are telling it over and over and over. Again, whether it is negative or positive. And in the 1960s, Dr. Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania coined that term, learned helplessness, that I just mentioned earlier. And his studies showed that when organisms are repeatedly subjected to a perceived lack of control, they eventually stop trying altogether. So even when the opportunity to escape or improve their situation is staring them in the face, they still will ultimately stop trying altogether. And then when you prioritize comfort, what you're doing is you are essentially training yourself into a state of learned helplessness. You start believing that your effort doesn't really matter. Or, so it's like, well, why bother then? Like what's the whole point? It's a sneaky trap because it doesn't always feel like a crisis. Sometimes it just feels like this dull, low grade dissatisfaction. It's a weird restlessness that we can't quite pinpoint or name it. And that's the potential knocking you literally, like that punch on the arm or needling you in the rib cage, screaming, hey, remember me? Well, guess what? We had plans. What are you doing? So there's this science of stress, right? And why we actually need friction. And if you want to be, anti-fragile, right? We have to understand this concept of hormesis. And I have talked about this in past podcasts. And hormesis, it's a biological phenomenon where a low dose of a stressor, something that would be toxic or lethal in high doses, not managed, not intentional, actually provide and produce beneficial effects on the organism. So think of it like, I've talked about it in terms of strength training and in, metabolic conditioning. You are literally tearing muscle fibers. You are literally stressing your aerobic capacity engine, right? That is stress, okay? That is discomfort. But the body responds by overcompensating and building back stronger when it's done intentionally and controlled, right? And the same applies to your mind, to your business, to your life, whatever it is. And Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, who is a Nobel Prize winner, found that bridgeable amounts of stress, what she calls challenge stress, can actually protect your telomeres. These are the caps that are at the end of your chromosomes associated with aging and cellular health. So, in short, when you avoid all stress, it's actually making you old, fragile, and quite honestly, just plain boring. You do not build resistance by avoiding the storm. You are building it by learning how to navigate through the choppy water without losing all your shit, right? Comfort is maintenance mode and growth is creation mode. So you cannot inhabit both at the same time. Pick one. It's like you cannot chase two rabbits, right? You got to pick a rabbit. Or if you chase two rabbits, guess what? You're not getting either one. So before we get into the hot badger tips, I want you to, if you can, put your phone down. If you're in your car listening to this or somewhere that you can't, that's fine. When you can, do this, step away from voice texting, digital notes app, whatever it is. And I want you to get an actual pen, could be a pencil, paper, physical paper, okay, for this next part. Why? I talk about it all the time, but because I'm a hardcore badger and I care about results more than your freaking convenience. As a matter of fact, I'm teaching myself how to write with my non-dominant hand, which is my left hand. And, so it's just a little challenge. I'll put that out there. Anybody want to try that challenge? It's actually, I am improving remarkably, which is crazy. At first, it was very, uncomfortable. But I want, this isn't some retro aesthetic choice because, again, I had talked about there is neuroscience behind this. And a study titled The Pen is Mightier Than the Keyboard, published by Pam Mueller from Princeton and Daniel Oppenheimer from UCLA, found that students who took notes by hand performed significantly better on conceptual questions than those who typed those out. So when you write by hand, you are forced to be more selective. You can't type every word, so your brain has to actually process the information and it has to summarize it and then it maps it out. And this is called generative note taking, and it activates the reticular activating system, the RAS, right, in your brain, which is basically that's your internal filter. So when you physically write something, you are signaling to your brain, pay attention, this matters. And that's what, I want you to do for all of my hot badger tips, things, strategies, right? Pen and paper is for transformation, and it requires a tactile connection between your hand, your eye, and your mind. And it slows you down enough to actually hear your own inner voice over all of the digital noise. So when you can, if you're in a car, if you can do it now, grab the damn pen, get your paper, and let's get to work. So 3 simple hot badger tips that are going to kick comfort's ass. So hot badger tip number 1, identify your comfort crutch. So at the top of the page, I would like you to write, and if these don't jam with you, again, just use this as a template and make it fit your circumstances, right? These are things that I've come up with for my experiences that have worked. These are just general. I'm not saying you have to do this verbatim. You know what? Tweak it, make it your own. So at the top of the page, the specific thing I use to stay comfortable instead of growing is, and then answer it without editing yourself. So basically, it's going to be like a brain dump. Don't try to sound evolved or like put together or like, it's like, oh, it's like a published and edited piece and it's so beautiful. No, I should be fucking raw, okay? Maybe it's overworking so you don't have to face failing relationships. Maybe is it researching for the 10th month in a row so you don't have to launch a program and risk being judged. That one, I said that because that is me. Because for me, if I am researching, I'm at least still doing something. But am I really? Okay, when I have spent an hour, a number, the 10th hour, 11th hour on yet researching the same thing instead of just launching, right? Is it people pleasing so you never have to deal with the discomfort of a no? Comfort is always going to wear a disguise. And sometimes it's going to look like being responsible. Sometimes it's going to look like perfectionism. So name the crutch. You can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge. So hot badger tip number 2, the rule of one daily discomfort. So with this, you don't need a total life overhaul by noon. You need compounding reps, right? Comment, commit to one small intentional discomfort every single day. Spend, maybe it's like it's spending time having the awkward conversation, or it's sending the email that makes your stomach twist up in knots. Maybe it's like lift 5 pounds more than you think you can, or post the video without checking, like, how's my hair, what do I got, my lips, does everything, like, what do the shadows look like, what's the lighting? No. Okay, don't. Just do the shit. And as Dr. Andrew Huberman often discusses, leaning into effort for its own sake can actually rewire your relationships with the friction itself. So you start to crave the stretch, right? So write down, what is my one daily discomfort today? Then go do it before your brain realizes what's even happening. So Badger Hot tip number 3, audit your evidence, not your feelings. This is super uber important. When you step out of your comfort zone, your feelings are going to lie to you every single time. They're going to scream that you're in danger. They're going to tell you that you're an imposter and that you should just go back to the couch immediately because everything is okay there and it's safe and it's comfortable and that's where I need you to be. I need you to ignore that. Instead, track the evidence. Use a journal to write down the facts. I sent the pitch. I completed the workout. I held the boundary. Okay. Your brain needs receipts of capability. And when you track the action instead of the emotion, what happens is you are building a logical case for your own growth. So it's like you are literally an attorney of this case of your own growth, right? So write down 3 things I did this week to prove I am stronger than my comfort zone. And here's where this is about holding your feet to the fire. It sounds all great, like, oh yeah, I have all this written down, and you don't do anything with it. Well, that's as good as like stupid and dumb. Okay, what's the point? You wasted all that time now writing this stuff down and not following it up with action. And I can tell you, you will remain in a fixed state. There will be no growth. So this is the part where I'm going to look you in the eye, and with that badger, just the badger look and love, and still refuse to let you off the hook. No one, no one, not even me, is coming to rescue you from your comfort zone. There's no perfect moment lurking around the corner telling you, like, hey, I'm your perfect moment. Hold on, I'm coming. We can do it then. There's not going to be this magical burst of motivation that's going to shoot through the clouds like a sunbeam, that's going to, make the hard thing feel easy, okay? It's just fucking going to be hard. We need to come to terms with that, doing the hard things. And, if you want a different life, it's important that you are willing to feel different first. You have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to be the idiot in the room. I'm just saying, while you're learning, you just sometimes look like a fool. When I'm like testing, different programming, or I'm at a gym and I'm trying something out, dude, I have I have had bands slapped up in my face that whipped back, or like, dude, I have done banded pull-ups that flipped up between my legs. Can I tell you what that's like? It is what it is. And you have to be willing to be unpopular. Remember, popularity has its penalties. When you are setting boundaries, it's not going to be taken very well most of the time, and it's also about being willing to feel the burn in your muscles and the uncertainty in your gut, your now. And it's not punishment. It's the price of admission for a life that actually matters. And I'm your friend, I'm your badger, right? And I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat and wrap everything up in perfect little glittery bows and packaging and tell you that it's okay to stay small just because it's safe. That is not my jam, and you will not hear me say that. And it's not okay because we're all capable of being a goddamn force of nature. But you're acting like you're this decorative little houseplant. And guess what? The world doesn't need more houseplants. It needs more badgers. So the Monday energy this week is about audacity, and it's about getting the shit done attitude that separates, all of the dreamers from the actual doers. You've got the data, right? You've got the science and you've got the tips. Now, my next question to you is, what are you actually fucking waiting for? All right, Badgers, remember, comfort is pretty, it is polished, it is familiar, and it is absolutely deadly if you decide to take up permanent residence there. So we are not built for all of those beige vanilla days, right? Or the muted dreams. We were not designed to live a life that looks fine on paper but feels like a flat soda on the inside. We're built to stretch, to strain, to stumble, to adapt, and to rise because we can with more grit and with all the capabilities than we did the day before. We are built to meet friction and be anti-fragile because of it. So take the little comfort hoodie off that metaphorical comfort hoodie and step into the friction. I want you to pick the hard thing on purpose today and go get that shit done. Don't just go through life, grow through life.